Welcome class back to lesson 2, 0.2 for our chapter. We are on our second section for the week, and so this one is our goal 0.2. I will be able to write numbers as fractions, decimals, and percents. So in order to do well in this class, we have to be able to go from fractions to percents to decimals, back and forth with no problem. And so this is just a refresher. It's a nice, easy lesson on how do you write numbers in different ways. So let's begin with the idea of percent. Percent means out of 100. The per means out of, cent means 100. A century is 100 years. A centurion is a Roman soldier, over 100 soldiers. And so cent, we have 100 cents in a dollar, pennies. So cent means 100. So percent means out of 100. So I could write any number as a percent by putting it over 100, or in our decimal system. So in our decimal system, this right here is the ones. This right here is tens. In our decimal system, everything is by tens. So this right here is tenths. And this right here is hundredths, the hundredths place. So 100 and hundredths is 2 decimal places after the decimal point. So tenths, hundredths. Hundredths means 2 decimal points. So if I take 94%, to make that a decimal, I need to find the decimal point is right here right now. And since percent means out of 100, I need to move the decimal back 2 to the left. So 94% is 0.94, decimal point 94, 94 hundredths. I could write this as a fraction as 94 out of 100. So the percent sign means out of 100. 94 out of 100, or take the decimal point, move it back to be 0.94. 94 hundredths, 94 hundredths. But now I can reduce 94 hundredths. They each have a factor of 2. They're both even. So if the numbers are even, I can reduce the fraction. I do want you to reduce, if possible. So divide by 2, divide by 2. How many 2's in 94? You may want to do it longhand, or if you have a calculator, you could use a calculator, but I prefer you do it longhand. How many 2's in 9? 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down to 4. How many 2's in 14? 7. 7 times 2 is 14. A remainder of 0. So 2 goes into 94 47 times. How many 2's in 100? 50 times 2 is 100, so that's pretty easy. I can just do that. So 94 100ths is the fraction 47 50ths. So I can write 94% as 0.94 and as 47 over 50. Let's do the same thing with 20%, letter B. 20%, if I were to write it as a fraction this time, as a decimal it's 20%, as a fraction is 20 out of 100. Here, 20 and 100 each have a factor of 10. 10 goes into both 20 and 100, so I can divide the top by 10, divide the bottom by 10. As long as I divide the top and bottom by the same factor, I will keep the equal fraction. I could have divided by 2. 2 goes into 20, 2 goes into 100, but 10 is bigger. So how many 10's in 20? 20 divided by 10 is 2. 100 divided by 10 is 10. I still can reduce, because what goes into 2 and 10? The number 2. So I could divide by 2. I could have started here and divided by 20 to start with. 20 goes into 20, 20 goes into 100. But this gives us an example of just continually breaking down to come to the final reduced answer. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the answer is 1/5. 1/5. I could have done this and divided by 20 to start with. How many 20s in 20? 1. How many 20s in 100? 5. Same answer. So if you find the largest number, the greatest common factor, fine. If not, you can keep this process until you get to a reduced fraction. Well, how do I write 20% as a decimal? So as a decimal, here's the decimal point right now. I move it 2 to the left. 20% is 0.20. You don't need the 0. That's just a place filler, 20 hundredths. Or you could say 2/10. This time I'd like to start with 0.3. Now this is a decimal. I'd like to write it as a fraction. So to write this as a fraction, I have to look at the position. This is in the 10th position, which means out of 10. So it's 3/10. I could write it as 3 out of 10. Is this reduced? This is odd, this is even, it's reduced. This is prime. So I can't reduce that fraction anymore. And then finally, how do I write it as a percent? If I start with the decimal to make it a percent, I move it 2 to the right. Move the decimal 2 to the right. So it's 0.3, I move it 1, 2 times, because I need to move it to 100, which is 2 decimal values, 2 decimal places. So it's going to be 30. So this will be 30%, and you don't need the decimal there. Move the decimal 2 to the right to form it. Let's do another one. Letter D. Let's do 0.41. 41 hundredths. To write it as a fraction, I look at the last digit. It's in the hundredths place. So this is 41 hundredths. 41 out of 100. Can I reduce this? This is odd, this is even, and this is prime. So I cannot reduce this. This is in its reduced form. If you can, please reduce it. And then, to make it a percent, I move the decimal 2 to the right. 1, 2, it's 41%. So we've started with percents, we've started with decimals. Now let's start with a fraction. Let's start with the fraction. The fraction is, letter E, 5/8. What I'd like to do is make this a decimal. Now, 5/8, to make it a decimal, I'm going to take 5 divided by 8. For a long division, after the 5, the top numbers, the numerator is inside, and the denominator is outside the division sign. How many 8s go in 5? 0. There are no 8s in 5. 5 is too small. How many 8s in 50? Well, I know 8 times 7 is 56, so 8 times 6 is 48. So I put a 6 there. 6 times 8 is 48. When I subtract 50, take away 48, is 2. I bring this 0 down for a place value. How many 8s in 20? 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. That's too big. So how many 8s in 20? 2. 2 times 8 is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. I don't have a 0 remainder, so I keep going. Bring another 0 down. How many 8s in 40? 8 times 5 is 40. So now I have a 0 remainder. My decimal is 0.625. Or you could take the calculator and you could go 5 divided by 8. And you'll get 0.625. So I made a fraction, I have a fraction, I made it a decimal. Now how do I make it a percent? I move the decimal 2 to the right. So again, move the decimal 2 to the right. When I move it 2 to the right, I get 62.5. And you do have to have the percent symbol there. So you need that sign, symbol. 62.5%. So 5/8 is 0.625 or 62.5%. Whenever I'm given a fraction on your worksheet, if I give you a fraction and I want you to make it a percent, the easiest way is take the fraction, make it a decimal, and then move the decimal 2 to the right. That's the easiest way. Take the fraction, divide it quickly, write down the decimal, and then move the decimal 2 to the right. That's how you can find the percent very easily. All right, so in your Canvas module, this worksheet then would be due Saturday evening at 10. That gives you, who are having this class on Friday, time to be able to work on it until Saturday at 10 o'clock. You can just answer these bottom questions and then submit it. The answer key is also on Canvas, so you can check and make sure that you're doing it right. But again, try these and be able to do these on your own, because when we have a quiz or an upcoming test, you'll want to be able to answer these and go from fractions to decimals to percents. All right, thank you. I hope you understood this lesson, and if you have any questions, we'll have our Google Meet time together as a class, and I can help you and answer some questions then. All right, thanks.